Welcome to this episode of The Square. For those of you that have been watching since the beginning, like my mom, thanks Mom, you may remember Gabriel Oros from some of the early episodes hosting, and thankfully we not only have brought him back, but he has come back with some pretty cool ideas for series that you will find over the next coming months. But tell us a little bit about the series that you're doing. We're going to see the episode for today.
Yes, thank you so much for bringing me back, having a part of this. I've loved the episodes and happy to be part of this new series. I am coming from a place of wanting to pursue our step as thought leaders in this industry, but want to do it from a different stance. And what has always inspired me is we see so much great content come out, so many great things that we produce and other firms talk about that are really huge leaders in the industry. But once we talk about them, they fall by the wayside. Yeah. Something happens, they disappear, we don't end up seeing them for a long time or see where they go. So what I want to do is start talking about why those begin to fall off the radar, where they go, what happens, what obstacles
why they
are in the way.
never get to where you expected them to get to.
Exactly. I think we have the opportunity to talk about where they went, talk about what happened, and then what we could do to start to bring some of those thoughts back. What are some of the game plan steps to really reintroduce some amazing concepts back into our field?
Hence the title.
What's the holdup? That's what I want to know. I want to take a concept and ask ourselves, ask our experts, what's the holdup? Why is this stalled where it is?
So stay right where you are for the first inaugural episode of What's the Holdup?
For decades, green roofs have been a quintessential part of the environmental design solution data bank. We have seen countless designs and iterations where they're put forward a lot. However, they seem to not be as prevalent as we'd like them to be. For all their environmental benefits, they seem to not exist as often as we should see them. And so I'm here today to discuss a very interesting portion of that topic and ask the question, what's the holdup? In order to have this discussion today, I am joined here with Mahdi from our Hugo team. Mahdi, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, of course. Thanks so much. So my name is Mahdi Afkhami. I'm a design researcher here with Hugo. My focus is mostly on environmental design, and my background is in architecture, especially sustainability, and I also have some experience in high-performance design.
Wonderful. And full transparency to everyone out there, Mahdi gave a presentation on green roof design, and that was actually the inspiration for this entire series. Wanted to come here and be able to talk about things that really should be more prevalent. But before we even dive into green roofs and what is the holdup of getting them along, I want you to kind of tell us, give us a rough definition of what a green roof is and what the different types of green roofs are.
Yeah, that's a really great question and great place to start. So basically, you have a building, you have like a parking lot, anything. So basically, whenever you add a layer of vegetation, and a layer of vegetation which also includes a waterproof membrane, so that would be counted as green roof. So it starts as simple as that, but you can always add to it, and it can become more and more complicated. So that's why we basically have three main green roofs. So we have the one that's just a layer of vegetation on the soil with just a waterproofing membrane. That's it. And then we can add more to it. So they're going to be added flower, adding plants, all the way to full-grown trees. So obviously, when it becomes that to a roof that you have full-grown trees, you have to make sure and account for the weight of the structure that you have, weight of the roof. You have to make sure that the roots of the plants and everything, they don't crack into the structure. So you have to make sure those are accounted for. So you can make it as really complex as you want, but it comes at the price.
So prices, and great you brought that up, because obviously it is something that is not everywhere, and it's something that is going to take a lot more of effort and evidence to really start to build. So what do you think is the big driver? Is it the structure? Is it the cost? What is really holding back the full adoption of green roofs into our community now?
Yeah, actually, it's kind of a mixture of the whole thing. So right now, as you see, with the whole climate change and the energy usage and everything that are out there right now. So you see a lot of especially photovoltaic panels out there when it comes to energy usage and renewable energy. Now, that's great. But when it comes to green roof, you can't say this. So let's say you have like a current building that you want to add a green roof to it. So a green roof, as we talked earlier before, it has a vegetation, it has soil, it consumes the water. So all these add a lot of dead load. Now, when we say add water, water by itself, it's really heavy. It's like 8 pounds to a gallon. So if we want to add all of these, the structures become really heavy, and it might not be able to add it to existing structure. So that's like one of the issues, that we can't add it to an existing building. It should be added to a new building.
And is that concern really coming from a green roof system holding water, maintaining water, rainwater, irrigation? Where is that water really starting to add in and drop into these systems?
Yeah, so when you're having a green roof and you have plants, so they need irrigation, they need water. So depending on the climate that you're in, you may be in like a tropical climate where you get a lot of rain. So it holds all that water, and it basically manages the storm water. So it helps a lot with like flooding issues, flooding scenarios. But in the same time, it's holding all this water. So you have to make sure that the structure can hold this. But let's say you're in like an arid climate. Still, you're not getting that much rain, but still you need to water those plants. So that's the water that goes into the system, and you have to make sure that not only the structure can hold it, but also you have good enough water barrier, moisture barrier, so they don't come into the building and present themselves as molds or like structure cracks or any other things.
So when I'm thinking of a green roof design, or if I'm an architect building a green roof, are there smarter types of vegetation to include that are more easy to design around? Is it natural vegetation? Are there new plants you can start to introduce? They're going to make that an easier or lighter load to get around, so that now I have an advantage where it's not as heavy, or does kind of deal with the rainwater better or water collection better?
Yeah, that's a great question, because so the idea is that looking more smarter on the type of the plants that we're using. So one thing when it comes to water is, for example, xeriscaping and using the plants that are native to the areas. But we go like one step further and looking at the plants based on what we're looking for. So for example, the specific plant that helps with air filtration. So all the plants get CO2 and release oxygen, but there are plants that would help in reducing the PM 2.5 or any like VOC contents. So using these type of plants based on what you need in the building, so like kind of like a smart selection of the plants, would help with that specific area that we're talking about.
Okay, now I understand this as I'm very smart, but for the layman's out there, what is PM 2.5?
Yeah, so
I have no idea what that is, I'll be honest.
So the air that we're breathing out there, so we have like a lot of stuff right now. We have like combustible engines, we have all the pollutants out there. PM 2.5, so PM stands for particulate matter. So we have different size of PM, and 2.5 is basically 2.5 micrometer. So we have different type of PM pollutants, for example, like we have PM 10 all the way down to PM 2.5. So PM 2.5, especially for human, can cause so many respiratory illness and can cause many health issues. And not all the filters, not all the air filters, HVAC filters, can even stop them and prevent them from getting the building. But surprisingly, with a specific plant selection and vegetation and greenery, that can be reduced significantly.
So when I'm thinking of green roofs and what advantages they really provide, to me, it's displacing or reintroducing any of the displaced green and natural environment that has been removed by a building, or adding to a place that didn't have this before. But it sounds like there's a lot of other advantages on top of those, as you started saying, from a air quality standpoint, from an insulation standpoint, that it really starts to assist the building performance and as it begins to move forward. Can you talk some more about what's encompassed under the advantages of utilizing green roof technology?
Yeah, of course. There are lots and lots of advantages to this system. So one of the main things that we're seeing right now, especially with the rise of urbanization and people living in cities, is the phenomenon known as urban heat island. So what happens is that big cities, when they're like dense, compact buildings and roads and asphalts and dark surfaces, so they pertain to get the heat and absorb all the heat from the sun and release it later in night. So what happens is that the temperature in these areas is by average significantly higher than places like suburban areas. So one of the things that green roofs and greenery helps is to offset this urban heat island. So because the greenery helps to reflect the heat, and also since you have the plants that keep the moisture within themselves, they help with evaporation. So actually, we at Hugo are currently doing a research, which we're going to be like presenting next month at the EDRA conference regarding the urban heat island and how it can be offsetted through data-driven recommendation and data-driven design strategies.
No, that's fantastic. I can't wait to hear about how that goes. Obviously, like you mentioned earlier, there's a lot of structural implications to introducing a green roof into your design, as well as maintenance, operations and maintenance that go along with it, which I think to anyone, any client, any contractor, just sounds like money. So in that conversation, how can we get ahead of that conversation to say, yes, there's a cost up front, but...
Yeah, that's a great point because it's always about give and take. And let's be candid. Sometimes, for example, if it's a private-owned single-family housing, that's a hard sell. That's a hard thing to sell because the return on investment on these things may not be as palpable as things like PV. Because, for example, in PV, you're seeing the amount of energy that you're saving. But with green roof, it's harder to see that. But the idea here is that I discussed a little bit about urban heat island, but the other things that's important is that, so when we're talking about green roof, it's like an extra layer of insulation that you're adding to your roof. And the roofs are part of the facade of the building, part of the envelope of the building that they lose a lot of energy through. So if you can have a system which is natural and have a lot of benefits, environmental benefits, that can help you save energy and save a lot on the heating and cooling, which would be like natural gas or electricity. So why not do that? So this is like a part of the sell that can be happening, and it actually helps a lot when we're going to the client and saying like, hey, these are the options, like these are the researches, these are the energy simulations that we can do that can show like how much you're saving, how much you would be saving in a specific amount of time, and your money would actually be returned. And the other thing is that, so when you have green roofs, they actually pair great with PV systems. Because especially in hot areas, for example, like arid areas, when the PV system and like the battery itself and like their converter, if they overheat, so their efficiency would drop down. Now, same thing for the HVAC systems. If they're out there and if they're hot, they would start to drop in efficiency. But if you have the green roof over there, if you have the green roof integrated with these systems, what happens is that you have a green roof which promotes biodiversity, which help with the urban heat island, which help with the energy saving system. But also it would help with your system, with your PV system or your HVAC system to work better because it's not overheating as much.
It's blocking out that whole bit of sun that's coming down and not letting it heat up the building. That's great. From a utilization standpoint, are we seeing more people wanting to not only create a green roof, but then occupy said green roof, have for their workers or anyone who's an employee at whatever building has this? Or are we seeing that people want to be a part of, like, be around the green roof?
Yeah. So there has been many studies, actually, many studies about like the employees in the offices or other spaces on like how they would think of like spaces like green roof in their building. And the studies have shown like how much these type of spaces can help with the productivity, happiness of the employees. So that's another type of return of investment you're talking about, because the people who are working in the company are happier, so they would work more efficiently. They would work with more accuracy. So these are all other stuff. And it's not just like the employees. So if we look at our younger generation, so the students, even college campuses. So many studies, especially after pandemic, that they had to like stay in home for like 2 years. So with having the option of like creating these beautiful environments like green roof, which are part of your educational system, which is part of the college or part of the school. So it would help with their creativity. It would help with them, like they're going to be happier. They're going to have like physical activities.
Yeah.
So all of these, if you put all of these together, again, it might not be as palpable, but you would see the effects, how it would actually compound, and you can see like a huge effect in like a 10-year thing.
And I'm great you brought up the kind of younger next generation of designers and architects and designers that are coming out. Are we noticing a trend of those values leaning more towards wanting to take those big steps towards sustainable design that would really put that emphasis on including a green roof design into part of some of our projects that we're looking at?
So yes, as we go through, especially for it's the newest generation, so like them having the options of like that's the generation of technology and like Instagram and other things. So them having the option of like connecting with nature and the environment is something that's not only they want, but something that's needed for them.
Absolutely. I mean, we and I, with Corgan, we talk about our values of wanting to kind of make sure to emphasize and be a big part of the newer developing and be agile towards those values of some younger generation to make sure that's a big, heavy part of our design ethos here at Corgan, which I think is great. It does sound like, though, a lot of the green roof is, it looks really nice and it performs and it's occupiable. Is there a way to even add another step further? Is it something that we're limited to with the type of vegetation, or can we use it to actually produce vegetation like a farming or gardening that happens on top of this kind of green roof scenario? Yeah.
So basically, you can say at some part there's no limit to it. So if you can make the structure heavy, you can have like. But I'm not saying like you can have like a total 10-hectare farm.
Right.
We're not going to be raising like apples over there. But again, you can have like a micro system that would help with like some farming for like, let's say like a local community.
Yeah.
So you can have those systems as well. So it would be like a community garden, but also you would have like small things like a salad mixers or like a thymes or something like that.
Yeah. I think when it comes down to maintenance, you begin talking about maintenance. Like we talked about putting the structure together to support it, but you also have to start talking about the infrastructure to sustain it, as well as any maintenance gone behind it. Are there changes in what we're seeing in technology to where that's becoming a far more viable and long-lasting maintenance solution in order to keep these going longer?
Yeah. So one of the setbacks and hesitancy systems of green roof has been that maintenance issue, because if the roof goes into the structure, so then you have to have a major change and major repair. And that would be something that's really expensive, costly, so it would stop the owner to do like something like that. But with systems right now, especially like with AI systems that can do predictive maintenance, so basically using Internet of Things and using sensors, you can place them in the area so that they would show when the system is needed for a repair, like a minimal repair. So they would notify the owner as soon as possible. They could also make like predictive modeling, for example, based on the weather pattern, based on like the wind condition, based on the type of the vegetation that there is, based on the structure. So they can do like predictive modeling of like, okay, when does this system need it to be watered? How much does it need it to be watered? So you would have like the maximum efficiency of the system with the least amount of major maintenance required.
I mean, this is a great way because it's a small cost to get in front of those things rather than it's not reactive maintenance, it's preventative maintenance. It's going to be a huge benefit. I think that's an incredible thing to get on top of. We have a lot of sectors here at Corgan. A lot of sectors have these big that have big projects literally all over the world. Are there any you're seeing within Corgan right now that you think would be best to right now start taking advantage of the green roof technology that can really implement this to a grand scale?
Oh yeah, that's a great question. So that's what I was thinking when we were doing our research on the urban heat island. And so right now, for example, one of the examples is the data center. So data centers are these big facilities where they need a lot of cooling because of the amount of heat that's generated from the server racks and the ID equipment. So not only the heat coming from these server racks is the issue, but also the other issue is that when an HVAC system and a mechanical system is working to cool the building, it emits heat outside. So basically you're putting heat inside the environment. So in order to offset that heat that you're creating, because these all would add to the urban heat island of the area. So green roof would be like a great system that can help in order to offset that urban heat and offset the energy of the building that's using.
Is that coming from because also the sun is heating up the roofs as well? So you're not letting, you're saying, look, we're just dealing with the heat inside, not necessarily the heat inside and the ambient energy come in and externally?
Yes, completely. Yeah,
that's amazing.
Yeah. And it's not just data center. The other thing I was thinking, aviation. Now, when you've been whenever you're in an airport, the sound of the planes taking off, that's a lot. So we talked about a lot of benefits of green roof. One of the other things that sometimes is overlooked is the noise barrier that it is.
Interesting.
Because it's like a layer of vegetation, soil, and tree, all other these stuff that comes on the roof. And they're able, if designed correctly, they're able to reduce all to around 8 to 10 decibel of sound.
Wow.
Now, when we're looking at the scale, that's a lot. That can reduce the sound really significantly. So then you would have people in the airport which are more satisfied, more happy, and they could use the current things that you have in the airport better. So it would help with the user experience as well.
Absolutely. I can also imagine if you're in an airport and you're, just from a occupiable or usability from a passenger stress standpoint, if you're going through and you had an opportunity to go to a rooftop greenscape and just kind of relax and unwind while it's still, you look at, I'm not saying it's a green roof, but Changi Airport in Singapore, they have a whole rainforest, and the kind of relaxation and comfort and calm people feel going into a green biophilic environment. That would do wonders for passenger stress level. They're able to utilize and occupy some of those spaces.
Yeah, that's a great point. I myself am a really stress flyer, so if there's those options, I would really enjoy them.
They'd be great to use. And then I know you mentioned earlier that part of the education system, there are others that, is the education system somewhere you'd like to see some of these green roof technologies utilized as well? Yeah,
that would be also something. So, for example, right now with all the governmental incentives that's happening right there, and we have the 2050 energy roadmaps for the country, for the United States. So reducing energy, creating net zero energy is something that's out there, and there's a lot of talk for it. So one of the things that can help a lot in order to reduce the energy usage of a building and help to reach that net zero is the green roof. So school is a great option to look at this from. We have a lot of schools, these are these big buildings, cooling, heating them. They require a lot of energy, and they have a lot of energy consumption. So again, green roof, aside from the fact that we talked of how it can help the students, it can also help with reducing the cost of the building itself. So that's also something that can be used. Education is yet another sector.
Not to mention that just having that to literally put someone in an environment where that is a norm, where someone is saying yes, I grew up around this, and yes, I'm learning about this from such a young age. It is then perpetuating a new system of saying this is a standard of what we need to be doing. And like you said, there are these energy initiatives that are being pushed and moved forward where the impetus is there and the momentum is there. It's where the demand is going. We have to get there at some point. Yeah. It's fantastic. I think there are opportunities to say, this is something that you'd almost be silly not to introduce one of these into your projects. I do talk a lot about, this obviously from an environment, the green roofs, like it's saying that they're not anywhere, but they are somewhere. There are places around. The U.S. is starting to adopt these systems and take them on. Are there any like really big projects, very successful projects that you would encourage people to go reference and take a look at?
Yeah, so there are some, especially. So one of the things that I can think of is right now in the Javits Center in New York City. So it's like a place they do like expos over there. So this is this giant warehouse type building, and they have like a 2.7 hectare green roof on it. So now they have like lots and lots of different type of plants. And what it does, actually, it helps a lot with the biodiversity. So it brings honeybees, it brings different type of birds, different species. So that's also another thing about green roof, that it can literally revive the biodiversity inside the area.
Oh, that's amazing.
The other thing is the City Hall in Chicago.
Okay.
So that also is like, and they have like a green roof inside their building, and that would help. That helps a lot with the energy reduction, especially Chicago in the winter. They need like some kind of they need a lot of insulation. They need to keep the building warm. So that also helps a lot with the energy saving. Now, there's a difference like here. So obviously, when you go to cold areas, cold region like Chicago. So when you have a lot of water, they can freeze. As water freeze, they expand. So it's the probability of need of maintenance, like pipe leakage, pipe bursting, is much more. So that talk that we had about like predictive maintenance become much more important and critical in areas like Chicago.
Okay.
Yeah. And the other one is basically I think it's a place in ASLA headquarters.
Okay.
That's in DC.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's in DC. That also, what it does is that it helps a lot with the energy reduction, all the way up to 10% energy reduction of the building.
Wow.
Which would equal to a lot of dollar sign saving.
Do you know any kind of percentage off the top of your head of what it take to take a typical project that we look at and introduce a green roof? What would that percentage kind of delta increase? And if not, that's okay. I don't mean to put
Delta increase on what?
For any of our projects. So let's say if we had a data center or a school or an airport, and we said, well, we want to take it from here's our design, but we want to introduce a green roof system on top of this, knowing that we have to increase our structure, increase some of these systems. What is that kind of delta percentage increase on budget? Is there any kind of numbers, raw numbers off the top of your head that you know?
Well, it differs. It's project by project. It's different, like based on location, as we discussed, based on the type of the current structure that you have, based on the type of the building that you have. So that's something that we as designers should sit with like other consultant, like structural consultant, and talk with them. And I believe we as Corgan, so we need to start pushing this outside. So when we do like client meetings, like going out there, we say, okay, you're here in the area now. If you want to reduce the energy, like these are the options, great. But also like you can have green roof. Let's have green roof. Especially for aviation, education. So those are the buildings that needs to be pushed. And we can have those. Yeah. And so what we do at Hugo, actually, so what we did with the project on Urban Heat Island, we did a study in Dallas, different zip code, we look at it. So what we did is basically using geospatial data, we studied the amount of the land surface temperature and the amount of vegetation in each area. So if we use this system, we can have a data-driven system where can help our design in order to offset the urban heat island for a project that we have.
I think it's great. And yeah, was going to be my next question is that if I'm a designer working on a project and we're putting together a proposal where we're talking about the project and I want to introduce a green roof or I want to start talking about this, what are my Corgan resources to start learning more about it, to be more confident does that mean talking to you? Does that mean talking to Hugo? What are the next steps for me?
Yes. So first of all, we have both Hugo and Echo. Okay. So Echo is the sustainability team, as you know. So they can help a lot with the energy simulations and the climate analysis in the area that we have. But always come to Hugo. So yeah, what we can do here is that we can have like as I mentioned, geospatial analysis using the latest data. I'm not saying real-time data because that's something that can't be happening because we're using like the satellite images, so it's like a real-time data that we have. So using that, we get like the temperature of the area and temperature of the area as well as the natural vegetation index. So, like how much vegetation it's in that specific region. Right. And so if you have like a building that has a specific square footage, so based on that, you can know like how much vegetation you need to create inside your building, how much landscape and green roof you need to have for the building if you want to offset that urban heat island or even help in reducing it even more.
Wow. So I'm glad you brought that up because I'm from an aviation standpoint, I'm on the aviation team. For those of you who don't know me, we have projects that are sometimes the end completion date will be 5-10 years down the line, and obviously technology from 5-10 years ago is different from where it is today. Are there new technologies kind of on the horizon, near future, far future that you're seeing that's going to continue to develop and build this within the next 5 to 10 years?
Oh yeah, of course. This is something that can also always progress and get better and better. Currently, with the rise of like system like generative AI, and even right now you have like ChatGPT 4.0, which can like do a lot. You can like give it an image, for example, of a roof, and it can design you like a green roof.
Okay,
so it can help you with the aesthetic of the system.
Okay,
it can help you with like the plant selection. The other things that you can have with the generative AI is that it can help you with the amount of landscape based on the design that you have.
Okay.
Now, with the crazy growth of the technology that's happening right now, I don't know what's going to be in like 10 years, 20 years. But obviously, it's something that's going to help a lot and be like a tool that can help the designers to combat the climate change issue and the consequences of it.
No, I think that's absolutely amazing. And yeah, hopefully we can start seeing it a lot more and being able to come to you guys as a resource and to kind of help us forward that narrative or that narrative to our clients to be able to talk about this and incentivize them that, yes, it's not just a hit to your wallet, it's actually a benefit to your wallet, benefit to the budget. A small investment up front has a huge return on investment in the future from not only cost, but also an environmental impact. I think that's great. And the more that we can lean and leverage that forward, I think we'll really make this a standard part of our practice, which I think is great. I think this has been absolutely wonderful. Before we wrap it up, is there any other comments on that we're talking about with green roofs that you'd really like to say and kind of give me your what for as far as how your belief of why we want to drive this forward?
Well, the only thing that is that like we need to have this stuff added because one of the things is that you can always go around like different HVAC systems when it comes to reducing the energy. But what green roof does is that it's more natural. It helps with the air quality. So I'm coming from the environmental design part. So indoor air quality is like something that it's really important for me. So, and if you can make that happen in the easiest way, in the most natural way possible, why not? So green roof is something that tackles a lot of areas, a lot of things together. Yes, it can get a little bit harder on the design part, but that's not an issue, especially with all the technology advancement that we have right now. And green roof actually goes back way in time. So like thousands of years ago, like we had like green roof systems. So adding greenery, biophilic design, it's a great thing to have, and it's a great tool to offset the effects of the climate change in all types of building.
Yeah. No, I think that's amazing. That's absolutely a wonderful portion of this, and I think it'd be a great to see part of our Corgan practice really start to leverage what it means to introduce the green roof design into our designs. Yeah. Mahdi, thank you so much for being a part of the inaugural episode of What's the Holdup. I had a great time talking to you. This was absolutely fascinating.
Well, thanks for having me.
Anytime. And for any of you out there that have your own question of what's the holdup, feel free to reach out to me in the link below. so that we can possibly come on here and discuss any of those concepts that you think need a little more attention. Thank you, and until next time, go do something great.